Natural mentors, you can say, who came into my life and taught me a lot of lessons and left, and some where I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for, based on faith that you will be supported, that you will figure it out, and that when your back is up against the wall, something will come through. Can't allow that risk to stop you. Who you become in the process and your ability to go and produce results, that return is infinite. If I told you I would give you $1 million and all that you had to do is give me $10,000 back, is that a deal you would take? I know it sounds silly, but most people, a lot of people, are presented an opportunity like this every single day. And it is such a very small percentage of people that actually have the awareness to be able to accept a deal like that. And that's why I want to talk about these two main pillars today that, when looking back, were probably some of the biggest influences and some of the biggest needle movers, and gave me the ability to actually completely change my life and be living in a completely different reality today. So I want to go to the depth on these two things that at the surface might seem simple, but when you really understand the importance, the magnitude, and really all the intricacies behind it, it will mean more to you. You can make your decisions differently, and you can therefore accept one of these opportunities that is probably right in front of you right now. Now, I'm gonna get straight into it because I want this to be nothing but straight value for you, and I'm gonna tell you my own experiences with some of the craziest decisions that I have made. Crazy when you understand how the world, the general public would look at it, but I would not be where I am today if I did not make these decisions in this crazy manner. So the two things I'm going to talk about today are your mentors and how to get in the room with people that can show you the exact roadmap to building any kind of life you want, and how to make decisions effectively. And I know that making effective decisions might not mean a lot to you right now, but trust me when I say one of the biggest differences between the people who are operating at the highest levels and the people who can't get out of their own way is how you make decisions. And when you really look at it, your life is just a series of decisions. And that's what dictates what your experience or what life path you're actually on is. So take this seriously. This video has the ability to make you a multi-millionaire if you're coachable and actually implement what's taught here. So I've been very blessed to have many mentors throughout my life. Some natural mentors, you can say, who came into my life and taught me a lot of lessons and left, and some where I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for. But one of the most important mentors to date was the mentor that I met when I was 20 or 21 when I was in real estate, and I met a manifestation coach. Now, just for a little context, at the time I was barely making it work with my bills. I had just got into real estate. I lived in Toronto. It was very hard for me to even pay my basic expenses. And I met a coach that I knew had the capacity to completely change my life. When I started to understand the magnitude of what she could do for me, when I started to really trust in that this person who had built that kind of life could actually show me the way to building that for myself, I went to her and I said, hey, let me know what it takes. I would love to work with you. And when I was given the price tag at the time, I think it was around $25,000 to work with her, I said no. Now, this is a very important part of the journey because at the time, I did not think that I had the money. In full transparency, I probably had around, I believe it was between $9,000 and $11,000 in my account. And so I thought that I wasn't able to afford it. Looking back, I just didn't know how to make decisions. And we'll get deeper into this because you have to understand there is always a way to make something work if you truly decide and truly know how to make a decision from the end goal, which is very important, so I want you to remember that. So after that interaction, when I thought I didn't have the money, I went on my way and I tried to do everything I could to learn this material on my own. I was reading the book Think and Grow Rich over and over again. I was doing many things. I'd see little changes in results, but I kept ending up back in the same patterns or back close to this same baseline in my bank account even that was incredibly uncomfortable. And this started to lead me to the understanding that there had to be some way to get in the room with these people even if I felt like I didn't have the funds. And I went back to her 6 to 8 months later and got in the room at first in whatever way I could. Free webinars, weekend workshops, whatever it took, until I got to the point where I just said, I have to do this. And I went all in and invested in myself in that high ticket coaching program. Now, when I said before that I didn't know how to make decisions and it didn't actually have to do with money, even though I didn't have the money, this is exactly what I meant. The first time that I actually invested in a high ticket coaching program to get with a mentor who could actually hold my hand and show me the blueprint and give me all of the material I needed to create that drastic shift that I wanted, I still only had $9,000 to $11,000 in my account, and I paid for a $25,000 program. And this is going to be an important part of anyone's life if you actually want to build something or create a life far better than what you have right now. You cannot make your decisions based on your bank account or your current results. You're going to have to learn how to start to make decisions based on what you think the return on investment could be, based on what you think that could do for your life, based on faith that you will be supported, that you will figure it out, and that when your back is up against the wall, something will come through. I tell people this all the time. If you know how to make a true decision and stay committed to that decision and keep your mind in check when it wanders to the doubt or the fear, you will be supported. You will attract every single thing that you need for the fulfillment of that decision. So please understand that. But first, I want to lay a little bit more of the groundwork of the importance of decisions and how to make these decisions. And I know I just mentioned a couple things, but let's really sit in it and unpack it here for a second. The first thing that you have to understand, which I kind of just touched on, is that you have to make decisions from the end vision. Now, yes, that does mean being the person who's already accomplished it and feeling abundant, but there is also the aspect, you do have a reasoning mind, a reasoning faculty, which does still look at logic. And so there's a part of your mind that you're going to have to get on board that says, hey, our bank account only has $9,000. This program is $25,000. How do we bridge this gap? Now, yes, as I said, if you make the decision from the right place, you will attract everything required to be able to fulfill that decision. But I also even want to take the almost logical side of this for a second so that you can understand how to approach it even with that part of your mind that has the fear. If you are considering an opportunity to work with a mentor or to work with a coach or get in a room that can absolutely change your life, invest in anything, you have to look at it in terms of return on investment. Now, this goes back to the question that I started the video with. If I said I'd give you $1 million and all you had to do was give me $10,000, would you take it? Now, that is the offer that most people are given when they have the opportunity to work with a really fantastic mentor. There is the small variable of risk, but you can't allow that risk to stop you. There will always be risk in some facet and anything that you want that's worth it in life. So you have to look at the potential downside and what would be the potential upside of that decision. If you actually get in the room with a 7-figure earner who says they'll show you how to do the same, you could learn how to make $1 million in a year, and then you not only made $1 million with that, let's say 10,000, if the program is 10,000, you make $1 million every year going forward, and probably more, millions, as you continue on your journey. So the return is actually infinite. Who you become in the process and your ability to go and produce results, that return is infinite. And of course, again, there will be some aspect of risk, but if you're not taking any risk, you can't expect to move forward towards that life you want without taking some sort of bets on yourself. So this is what I mean by return on investment. You know, I think it was Alex Hormozi said something really incredible. If someone came and offered you a Lamborghini, and it's a $300,000 car, let's say, and they said, hey, I gotta get rid of this, I'm moving, it's $50,000. Even if you don't have the $50,000, you will find some way to make that work. Because if you get that $50,000 together to buy this car, you could go sell it for $200,000, $250,000, $300,000. So would it not be worth it to go to the bank, look at lines of credit, to go to friends and family, whatever it took to actually get creative to make that money work? You would. This is what I mean when I talk about making decisions from the end goal. It's not just about already feeling abundant and feeling like that person who's achieved it. Even just logically looking at each decision and saying, will this decision get me to this potential end goal? Let's say the end goal is to be a millionaire. Will this risk potentially even get me to this point where I am a millionaire? Isn't the $10,000 well worth it to be able to potentially become a millionaire? That is an incredible return on investment. And this is how we have to start seeing our decisions in our life. We can't see them from our current situation. We can't look at our bank account. We have to understand the true potential that lies within that offer or within that decision. And on this topic, you have to understand, it's not always going to be immediate. And it's not just the decision. The decision is the first thing that gets you in the room. Then you have to implement and continue to make decisions as that person. I've had people get in the room with me and triple their income in 3 months. Like, many people have done that. I've had people get in the room with me and go from $8,000 months to over $100,000 months in as little as 6 to 7 months. I've had people go from $3,000 a month to $40,000 a month in 4 to 5 months. And all of that is so fantastic and incredible. I have also had people come into the room and for 6 months have to work through so much stuff and their income doesn't raise, but they change as a person so incredibly, massive movements within. And if they continue working with me within those next 6 months, maybe that's when the quantum leap happens. But they've seen the internal changes which precede all of the physical world's changes. So then they start to understand, yes, this is worth it. They continue doing the work. And at a certain point, if you keep doing the work and you keep investing in yourself and you keep learning from mentors, you will make it happen. I was in the room with someone recently. I paid for a one-on-one to go to this guy's condo. He sold something like $150 million worth of coaching over 7 years. So I had the opportunity to go to his condo and do a one-on-one session with him for 2 hours. You better believe I took that opportunity. And something that really struck me is that he said he hired someone to learn ads. He hired someone to learn marketing. Neither of those worked. He hired someone to learn ads and marketing again. He ended up hiring 4 to 5 coaches. And on his 6th or 7th coach, he finally, with everything he had learned and this last little tweak that this last coach gave him, and it took that long to find that real coach too, as soon as he invested in himself that many times, on the 7th time, it hit. And he said, was all that money and all that time worth it to finally find the coach and to accumulate all the knowledge through all of those journeys to get to the point where he had the skill to run an ad that would make 5 times the amount of money he put in? 100%. Because then you put in $10,000, you make $50,000 back. You put in $100,000, you make $500,000 back. Yes, there was a journey and there was risks, and he had to technically go in the negative a lot, invest a lot of money and go into debt to get to that point. But once he had actually acquired all the skills and cracked the code, he's infinitely living a better life for the rest of his life. He's a multimillionaire who sold over $150 million worth of coaching. So you better believe that these risks, and that if you keep working and keep investing on yourself and stay committed, that you will make it work and it will all be so worth it. Now, I'm going to tell you some really incredible decisions that I made similar to that. The first decision that I made when I first got into these rooms with these higher level people who could teach me was a scary one. But I ended up tripling my income in the next 8 months after I hired that coach. So let me tell you, it was well worth it. And I want to tell you the story of 2 other decisions through this framework that completely changed everything for me. Just so that you can truly see how important decision is and how this can play out in your life. So the next big decision that I made was when I had started my coaching company. It was already running, right? I already had the coaching company. I was still working at another coaching company. So I technically had a job as a head advisor at a coaching company, and I had my own coaching company. Like, I guess you could say on the side. I looked at it as the full-time thing and the job as the part-time thing, but that's a story for another day. Now, I go to this event and I meet this coach that I have full conviction can help me. not full conviction. Obviously, there's always a little bit of worry or doubt, or there's still a part of me that was unsure. But I will say that I met this coach and I thought, okay, if I got around this person more, I do have confidence that my life would change. Now, at the end of the event, I talked to this coach's salesperson, and they told me that it would be $50,000 USD to work in this 4-month group coaching program that I really, really felt called to and wanted to get in. And this was a very pivotal time in my life. I had started a business that I really wanted to just take off and be my full-time thing. I was still working my job, which obviously took some time and my mental energy, and I was getting married in about 3 weeks from this date. Now, I'll also add in that $50,000 US for me, because I'm a Canadian, was about $71,000, I believe is what it was. And if I did the payment plan over 4 months, it would have ended up being $84,000 Canadian for me to get into this 4-month group coaching program. Now I sat with it and I asked the one question that I always ask: is this going to get me closer to the life that I want? Do I think it is? We never know. Do I think this is going to get me closer to the life that I want? The answer for me, although I was incredibly scared and thought, hey, I could go completely broke here, was yes. I'll be transparent and tell you too that that was a large amount of money for me at the time. I was gonna be putting that money on a credit card and working my ass off just to be able to do it. And I didn't have a credit card with that limit too, so it was the payment plan. I was committing to $84,000 over 4 months with no way of knowing how I was gonna pay it off and no clue of how I was going to pay my wedding vendors in 3 weeks from that date. But as I sat with it, I know that there are only 2 voices that are happening within. One of them is the programming and fear, the ego that's trying to keep things familiar, that's trying to keep things the same, safe in what it knows. And the second voice is the intuition. And the intuition will answer that question that I said before. If you really sit with it and you allow yourself, your nervous system to calm, and you sit with the question, do I think this will get me closer to the life that I want? And the answer was yes. And so I put that first $21,000 down, no clue how I was gonna pay off the rest. I walked back to my hotel room with shaky legs thinking I was going to puke. But I was thinking about the end vision. And so I made a decision in that moment. I will only allow my mind to go to one place. Adam, you are going to be an $100,000 a month coach. Adam, you are going to be an $100,000 a month coach. And that is the only voice that I allowed to have space in my mind. And I'm not gonna lie, it is incredibly hard, especially when you make a big decision like that. I was so close to crying or puking, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. But I knew this work, and I knew I just had to keep inputting the one thing that I wanted as the outcome. And so that's what I did. Now the story does get crazier, so just hold on for a second here. Because I go back to my hotel room and I'm just putting my mind in that one place. You're gonna be a $100,000 a month coach. And because this big decision, all of my fears had been uprooted and were in my face, screaming at me, saying, you could go broke. What are you doing? How are you gonna pay your wedding vendors? All of these things. And I took all of those and consciously, while they were uprooted, consciously put my mind in that place of, you are gonna be a $100,000 a month coach, do not worry about this. Now, because I was so consciously putting my mind on being a $100,000 a month coach, some very scary next thoughts came to me. And I knew that this was my intuition as well, because why would anyone think this way if it wasn't true, genuine guidance? And the next thought I had was, I need to quit my job. After investing the most amount of money I ever had in my entire life, why would I be called to quit my job? But I felt in my heart I needed to do it. Something within me was saying, this is the moment where you go all in on your dreams, no matter what. And so I decided to do it. I was shaking, literally hands shaking, called my boss, told him I had to talk to him. He was kind of expecting it, but he didn't know the investment that I just made. Told him about the investment, and he was trying so hard to get me to stay. And I had to tell him, listen, I love you, but I have got to go do this for myself. I've got to go all in. And he knew me well and respected it. He actually encouraged it when he heard how serious I was about it. And so I hung up the phone. I was, again, in a state of almost pure disorientation at this point. And just hang on, because it gets crazier. My soon-to-be wife, my fiance at the time, calls me just 4 minutes after I hung up the phone from my boss. Because I remember looking at the time and putting the phone down and just sitting at that kitchen table in that hotel room, wondering really what I was doing here, but also knowing somewhere in my heart that I was going to choose the outcome that served me. And so my soon-to-be wife calls me and she's crying. And so I say, what's going on? Like, tell me what's up. Is everything okay? And she says, Adam, I was just laid off of my job. And so within the span of an hour, I invested every dollar more, committed to more than what was in my bank account. I quit my job, and there I was with my wife on the phone crying that she had just lost her job 3 weeks before my wedding. And I started to laugh because there's no way that all of this could happen if I wasn't capable of handling it. I have full, genuine faith that we are only given the challenges that we can handle. And did my capacity have to expand? Did I have to deal with a crazy nervous system screaming at me? Did I have to deal with the haunting thoughts of doubt and worry all the time? Yes, I did. But I also had a choice, again, another decision, moment to moment after that point. Was I going to crumble and let the doubt and the worry eat me alive? Or was I going to step into the person who goes and produces the results that I decided I would get from making that investment? And so that's what I did. I made a decision moment to moment to not allow my mind to go to the doubt and worry. The first 2 to 3 days when I was still in that hotel, the conference was over, I was just staying there to see the city. I genuinely couldn't even do work. Every waking moment, I was in such a worried state that I would have to go on the couch and visualize me making $100,000 a month, being that coach, getting those results. And I did it over and over again. And then I would come out of it and I would feel good. And I'd go about my day for a little bit and the worry and doubt and anxiety would take over again. And I'd have to go visualize. And then I'd go in the sauna. And it was 2 to 3 days of basically me just visualizing because I didn't know what else to do with myself. This is the power of decisions though, because not only did I make the one decision, I made a continuous decision to catch my flow of thought and only direct it to the life that I knew would produce an outcome. This was one of the most pivotal moments of my life. Now, what's crazy is 1 week later, I ended up deciding that I wasn't going to go on this other trip. I was supposed to go to Chicago, and I just felt so called to not go. I really did need to give myself space and time to process, to keep my mind right. It wasn't even just specifically to work, but just really to protect my energy. And so I decided not to go on this trip. And as soon as I made this decision to not go on this trip, someone reached out to me and said, hey, Adam, we've been liking your content. We were supposed to have a guest speaker come and speak to this community this coming Sunday or whatever it was when I was supposed to be in Chicago. And we would love if you could come and speak. And so I said yes. And I went and spoke to this community of hundreds of people. They all really resonated with my message and the way that I help people. And over the next 2 weeks, I was booked solid with sales calls or calls of people interested in my work. I ended up making $75,000 in 1 week, $85,000 that month. I didn't hit my $100,000 a month goal that month, but I did make more than enough money to pay for the program in full. I ended up therefore having the money to be able to pay for my wedding vendors. Me and my wife had the most beautiful wedding ever, and we went into marriage as a completely different person, both of us, from having gone through that, having to hold the level of faith through that scary decision that I made, and coming out the other end of it with a business that was therefore able to produce $85,000 a month. And knowing that this was just the beginning, if I could go do that in a short period of time, 85,000, what was going to happen if I continued to commit and continued to stretch myself and invest and get in the right rooms and make the decisions and hold the faith and become that person time and time again? You got to see exactly what happened from one perfect little test. What happens if you spend your life making decisions like that? That was the beginning of a lot for me. Now, I have other stories. Honestly, I'm going to end it there because I think it would do it injustice if I just went into all these other crazy stories. But now you can see, and I want you to take something so important away from this, which you'll probably see I say all the time. Success is not logical, but it does leave clues. And if you study some of the most successful people in the world, they bet on themselves. They invest to get in the right rooms. Even if you look at successful companies, they often start in debt because they have to have the funds to do whatever's required to get to a certain point. And you need to look at yourself in that same way. You need to invest in yourself rigorously. You need to get in the room with the right kind of people who you resonate with. And you might even have just one small little inkling that they could change your life. And even just listen to that small little voice and make a decision that's different than you usually would. And maybe, just maybe, you can accept $1 million offer paying just $10,000, whatever that current program would be worth. I hope you take this seriously. I hope you understand the power of mentorship and getting in the right rooms and making decision. I will say this was probably more about decision than it was mentors, so maybe I'm gonna have to get more into mentors and environment in another video. I think that would be very worth it, very interesting. But please take this to heart. And if you ever have any questions or anything, shoot me a message on Instagram @AdamOfVenus, and I will see you guys in the next one.